What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about the Immortal Hulk Volume 2, The Green Door. I talked about Volume 1 a little bit ago, and in that video, I said I wasn't sure about the direction of the series. Specifically, I said I wasn't crazy about a slight supernatural element being introduced into the mythos of the Hulk. I really liked Volume 1, but there was a supernatural angle that I wasn't too fond of, even though there is magic and supernatural stuff in the Marvel Universe at large. With the Hulk specifically, I said I wasn't too fond of merging magic into his character and backstory. Well, I saw Volume 2. This collects issues 6 through 10 of Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing, Joe Bennett, Lee Garbett, Martin Simmons, Rui Jose, Lebo Underwood, Rafael Fontires, and Paul Mounts. And saw this volume, went ahead and got it because I did like Volume 1 quite a bit. Read this in pretty much one go, and I think this series has won me over. I am much more on board now. I wasn't really sure with Volume 1. With this, I really like this. For one thing, this is a little different than Volume 1. Volume 1 was about half and half from the perspective of the Hulk and from the perspective of reporter Jacqueline McGee, loosely based on Jack McGee from the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno TV series. Jackie McGee barely in this volume at all. And with the first volume, you had several standalone stories that were all kind of building to a bigger arc. Not so much with this one. This one feels like more of one singular storyline. You've got, actually it's two stories, but they blend together pretty well. But this isn't, each issue is its own thing that's all building to something bigger like Volume 1 was. But I was okay with that because I was reading this in one volume and I wasn't reading it month to month. But what made me realize that I'm really enjoying this run is that the creative team on this book is doing with the Hulk what Alan Moore and his artistic collaborators did with Swamp Thing in the early 1980s. They took a character who previously had kind of a sci-fi origin. It was bull science. It wasn't real science, but in comics, where is there real science? They took a character with a sci-fi origin and backstory, and then they added more of a mystical angle to it. They pretty much got rid of all the sci-fi stuff, and it was all mystical and supernatural. And the only difference between this version of the Hulk and Swamp Thing is that I think a lot more people are familiar with the Hulk. The Hulk has a fan base. Before Alan Moore came on Swamp Thing in the early 80s, I don't think that many people really cared about Swamp Thing. He was taking kind of a nothing character and then doing his own thing with it, completely reinventing Swamp Thing from the ground up, and then turning it into one of the most well-revered runs in comics, not just in Swamp Thing, but in comics in general. And yes, there were people who liked the Len Wein stuff that came before, but mostly I think Swamp Thing was kind of an unknown. And so with the Hulk, I had a set idea of this is what I think the Hulk should be handled, and this is what I want with the Hulk. Even though every creative team that comes on the Hulk, and I talked about this in my review of Volume 1, every creative team comes in and they do their own thing. The Totally Awesome Hulk was very different than this. The Jason Aaron run, the Mark Waid run, none of them were really that similar. The only common factor was the main character. But in the Jason Aaron run, the main character was the Hulk. In the Mark Waid run, the main character was Bruce Banner. So even from run to run, you can have almost nothing be similar. But even so, with the Hulk being a character who has appeared in multiple movies, he's been a pretty steady feature in comics for over 50 years now, I had more of a set idea in mind of I want the Hulk to be a sci-fi character. I don't want any of this mystical stuff coming in. And reading this volume, I was able to put that away, and I was able to see that with the mystical stuff, this creative team is able to tell some really interesting stories here. I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but this is more than anything a horror comic book. It's not even a fantasy story. I keep saying supernatural and magic. That makes it sound a little bit like a fantasy story. It's really really not. This is a horror comic, like what you would have seen if the Comics Code Authority didn't exist in the 1950s. This is what Frederick Wortham would have been preaching against if this comic existed back then. And I absolutely love it. There's some really gross stuff here. I really don't understand. This is a side rant, not even a rant. This is T+. I was reading the first volume of Old Man Hawkeye the other day, and that was, I think, parental guidance advised or something like that. I think this comic is much more messed up than that Old Man Hawkeye comic, so I don't really know what the rating system is like or how that works, but anyway, I have been all over the place. I haven't really talked a lot about this book because I want you guys to read this run. Now that I've read the first 2 volumes of this run, I think you guys should check this series out. I am really enjoying it. I'm kind of sad. I really don't know what the future of Marvel is right now. We've been seeing some teasers for the new Heroes Reborn event, and we're seeing Hulk fighting some aliens in an asteroid or something. I don't think that's part of the Immortal Hulk thing, so if I had to guess, I'm going to say that Immortal Hulk is coming to an end, and Marvel is kind of doing another soft rebrand with this Heroes Reborn thing. That kind of bums me out because now that I've read these 2 volumes, I really like this run, but you can't expect this creative team to just keep doing this forever. Eventually, they probably would have burned themselves out, so it's understandable. I just wish we could get a whole lot more of this than what we are going to end up getting. But I am 100% on board now. I said I was like, 90% on board when I was talking about Volume 1. I am definitely on board now. I cannot wait to keep reading this series. So those are my thoughts on the Immortal Hulk Volume 2, The Green Door. So that's it. I will see you guys in the future. Have a good one.